In this video, I want to explore the idea that myth leads us to the magical concept to create a self-feeding circle of power for ourselves, to achieve the balance of the physical, mental, and spiritual. In Norse myth, there is a serpent named Jormungand that consumes its own tail. It's commonly known as Ouroboros, a perpetual being constantly consuming itself. This serpent is the middle child of Loki the Deceiver and Angerboda the Frost Giantess. The serpent surrounds Midgard. When Jormungand releases his tail, it is said that the world will end with Ragnarok. The serpent we want to create consists of three parts: the head, the body, and the tail. And like Jormungand, it feeds itself, continuing on in an endless cycle. The head, body, and tail can be represented as the physical, the mental, and spiritual awarenesses. Mastering one affects the other. By mastering physical strength, we become more mentally present. When we seek to increase our mental strength, we become more at ease spiritually, and our spiritual understanding or awareness feeds back into the understanding of our physical capabilities. Once you have mastered all three, you achieve victory. However, if you cannot harness the power of Ouroboros, the circle is broken and the world can be destroyed, like it's described in most Ragnarok theories. I believe this is what we are seeing being reflected within the Song of Ice and Fire in Game of Thrones, this paradoxical concept of assimilation of opposites that has been explored by great minds like Carl Jung. The idea of birth, life, death, and rebirth is explored through multiple point of view characters, the idea that destiny cannot be achieved without personal loss. Just like Jormungand and Ouroboros, that slays himself, brings himself to life, fertilizes himself, and gives birth to himself. For the sake of this video, I want to focus on the way that George has shown us that time and time again that history repeats itself. The concept of time is much more important than we think. If we take the concept of Ouroboros and apply it to Game of Thrones, then we can safely say we are seeing the second age of heroes. We hear throughout the story from different characters such as Melisandre and Maester Aemon that Stannis Jon or Daenerys is Azor Ahai reborn in the flesh. And as we saw in the previous age, the natural balance between nature and man had been in conflict where the forces of ice and fire clashed and created a great war. We have different cycles of summer, winter, and spring, and this is what we are seeing within the Song of Ice and Fire. It's described within the poetic Edda poem of Voluspa. Brothers will fight and kill each other. Sisters' children will defile kinship. It is harsh in the world. Whoredom rife. An axe age, a sword age, shields are riven. A wind age and a wolf age before the world goes headlong. No man will have mercy on another. We see this reflected within the title of George's books: Game of Thrones, A Clash of Kings, A Storm of Swords, A Feast for Crows, A Dance with Dragons, The Winds of Winter, and A Dream of Spring, previously titled A Time for Wolves. It can be interpreted in many different ways, and it is a sign that the Starks will play a big part in the end of the story, and perhaps that it is a sign that magic will end, but the Starks perhaps will have endured at a great personal loss. But this isn't a story that's just about the Starks. Perhaps it's more bittersweet, where after the long night, the building of the wall caused a disruption in the natural cyclical nature of the seasons. However, the second long night perhaps will force the hand of nature and man to adapt, almost like a divine intervention from the gods ushering in a new age, a dream for spring. This circle and cyclical period reflects within each character's arc and journey as well. This is why George is such a masterful author. He has the ability to replicate and reflect the same concepts through different perspectives of so many different people. This gives us a unique worldview, not just from the side of the victors, but the villains, the animals, and even the perspective from nature itself. This process of becoming aware or awakened by these forces or realizations is what we call individuation, the idea that a person can shape the world around them. Each individual is grouped into an archetype, and according to Jung, the collective unconscious contains archetypes, which are forms or symbols that are manifested by all peoples in all cultures. The concept of a collective unconscious relates to the spiritual model of living beings consisted of individual parts of spirit encased in physical form. The symbols of unconscious abound in Jungian psychology are the syzygy, the divine couple, the child, the Superman, the hero, the great mother manifested as either the good mother or terrible mother, the wise old man, the trickster, or the ape. We see this reflected within the faith of the seven: the mother, the father, the smith, the crone, the warrior, the stranger, and the maiden. This is really interesting because they are basically the same types of archetypes we have seen reflected throughout human history. This quote from Carl Jung explains perfectly what George is trying to make us understand within the Song of Ice and Fire. There are no longer any gods whom can invoke help to us. The great religions of the world suffer from increasing anemia because the helpful divine will has fled from the woods, rivers, mountains, and animals, and the god men have disappeared underground into the unconscious. We are so captivated by and entangled in our subjective consciousness that we have simply forgotten the age-old fact that God speaks chiefly through dreams and visions. Doesn't this sound a lot like what happened with the children of the forest in the first men? It sounds eerily similar. And the Song of Ice and Fire, really at its core, is the battle of the human heart with itself, the paradox of good versus evil, but also on a larger scale, the story of natural balance between humans and nature. This is going to be a new video series where we take a look at complete arcs and also different archetypes of characters. I'm so fascinated by George's influences and the psychology of all the different characters in the story. There's really so much that we can dive into. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a comment on which arc or character you would like me to dive into in the next episode of Psychology of Thrones. Also, if you would like to get bonus content and help support the channel, you should consider becoming a patron on Patreon. We've added 28 amazing members to the Hype and Love community, and there's all sorts of awesome rewards, and you can pledge as little as $1. Also, we now have Azora Hype t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. The link is in the description of this video. Thank you so much again to all of my amazing patrons and donators who continue to amaze me, and thank you so much for watching this video. Hype and Love.
Fuck the king.
How much for your little clam?